friends, this is the Be Real Babe podcast, a place where your average Canadian wolf pack come together to talk about life stresses, messes, and successes. A safe space where being yourself is the ultimate goal. Each week we will bring you new episodes, sharing our experiences on a ton of different topics, in hopes we get a better understanding of ourselves, each other, and this crazy world we live in. We want to build a community where we can show up as ourselves, be real, and lay it all out there. By sharing our experiences, we hope to reach others who can relate so we can all help each other learn, grow, and heal. But please keep in mind, as a disclaimer, none of us here are professionals, no one is giving any advice. We are strictly speaking of our life experiences and for entertainment purposes only. Now with that being said, it's time. So grab your drink, grab your joint, and let's jump right in. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the Be Real Babe podcast. I am your host, Brandy, and here with me today is my beautiful co-host, Kayla. Hey, girl.
Hey, girl. What's up?
Just chilling here, ready to break some shit open here in episode 5. How about you?
Oh, I'm so ready for this one. I really am ready for this one.
Right? So today, guys, we're going to be talking about something that I think most of us deal with in a grand or small scale, which is our little friend, anxiety. We just love anxiety. Me and Kayla are both very familiar with this little friend of ours. We've both dealt with it for a very long time. So we thought it was also a very suiting topic to talk about because we know a lot of other people that suffer, but have also really succeeded in their journeys. And we thought that's the perfect one to highlight. And we want to share that with you guys.
100%. And yes, we do have a lot of experience with this little devil that we call anxiety. You know, like they refer to your conscience sitting on your shoulder. I don't think I ever had a good or bad conscience. I think it was always anxiety. Like always.
Totally. And I love that movie. I can never remember what it's called, but it was like a new Pixar movie. It was like the feelings ones with all the little emotions.
Oh, Inside Out.
Yeah, that one. And I was like, that is like, that was just such a great visual representation of like kind of how your brain processes a little bit.
Yeah, I really agree with you there. I thought, and I remember at first I was like, dude, that's kind of a dark cartoon. And then I was like, but that's so relatable.
Yeah, and I think if maybe when we were younger, if we got to see that and understand it maybe a little bit more and learned how to work with it instead of being curious as to like what the fuck is going on in my brain.
Yeah, how
like
to
maybe
just slap you in the face.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe it would help. Maybe it wouldn't. We don't. But who knows? So, guys, we wanted to jump on today. We hope that we've really enjoyed everything we've brought to you since. I know one big thing talking about anxiety for myself is since the beginning of this, I've had anxiety every single time I post or every time we do an episode and I listen back for editing. You know, not that I'm too worried, but it's always like, oh, I hope everyone takes this, you know, as I'm meaning it. And, you know, you're getting super vulnerable. So it's been fun to work through an episode about anxiety and working through your anxiety with it. It's kind of just like just a trip.
No, totally. It's, oh, frick. Oh, man. We talk about this. Oh, frick. Oh, man. Like, listen to me. There it is right there, guys, in the flesh. Yeah. Anxiety. Yeah. Just kidding. But Brandy and I talk about this quite a bit. Yeah. Example A from Exhibit A. Frickin', well, literally, I have to work through so many things. Like, so many things. Pictures, for one thing, is hard for me to go back and look at. Because I'm like, then it brings kind of like you remember how you felt in that moment. And it's like, ooh, oh, and it gives me anxiety. So I'm like, not my strong suit. Yeah. You know?
Or like a song comes on, you're like, ooh, this brings me back to like, I love music and there's a lot that I listen to like hype me up. But there's equally some songs that like come on the radio or just like on a playlist where I'm like immediately like, skip that, don't want it. That just brings me back to like 2001 when this happened. And like, oh, it's just funny how there's so many little triggers and different things in your life. Like you'll forget about something completely. And then you hear a song or you're somewhere, or you eat something or you smell something and it brings you back to a moment of where you were like super anxious or embarrassed or something. And it's like, you're in that moment all over again when you like, yeah, tell like you're a flight attendant and it's like, oh, have a good flight. And you're like, yeah, you too. And it's like, oh well, no, you're just at work having your job. Never mind.
Oh my God. Oh, it's too good. I mean,
like, yeah. You have to laugh at it now. No, you have to laugh at it because it's like, it's just reality, you know, like, and for right now, I think a lot of us can relate to environmental anxiety where it's like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people, for example, will stay in the same, not a lot of people, some people, and myself, I'm calling myself out, have stayed in jobs, relationships, friendships, situations that I know maybe aren't as great for me, but I'm too anxious and nervous to know what that change would be like, right? Or like,
Right.
for example, right now I'm starting a new job, and it's like that new job anxiety where you don't know as much and you don't know everyone yet. And you're just like, you know, but you know that it's going to be great and the change is good and you're welcoming it. But in the same sense, you almost hold yourself back sometimes from opportunities because you know your anxiety is going to show up mad hard in those situations, and you're going to have to work extra hard with your tools to calm the fuck down so you don't seem like a psychopath your first, little bit of work. It's been great that I already have a friend there that knows that. So, I'm very supportive. Not that they're not supportive, but you know what I mean? Then your anxiety is like, then it's like, yeah. So for example, we had pizza the other day, and this is so funny. I forgot to get my key card, so I locked myself out of the warehouse, and they were like way in the back, so they couldn't hear me. So I had to run all the way around the building, like pop my head up, and the whole time I'm thinking they probably think I'm the biggest idiot right now. But I was like, whatever, it's just who you are. Just everyone's laughing, and like at least if people think back on it, they'll just think that I'm funny and it's great and it's a good time, Whereas before I'd be like absolutely fucking mortified, and I probably just would have went home without my phone or something. But when
I
you're
get
that
it.
deep in your
Yeah,
anxiety, you're
I
just
get
like, I
it.
can't face this shit. I'm just gonna run away from it.
Totally. No, and like that's so honest and real. Like I've had that. I've had not like I don't know if I've ever like left a situation, but I've completely done as much as I could to avoid what I was having to face. But 100%.
Totally.
Like
Right?
100%. And it was yeah, it was always like, I'd feel bad, but it was like I just didn't want to show up because I just didn't have it in me to show up.
Totally, totally. And it's just like, and then you come up with all these hypotheticals too, right? And then it just spawns and it just spirals. And if you don't have any control or tools, or you can't identify it, for me personally, then it's just like it stems so many other things. But if I'm like in the moment, so if I go to work now, it's like you're expected to be the new person. You're not supposed to know everything. Like, it's okay. Like, just be yourself. Like, why do you think that people, like, why is this constant, like, oh, everyone's going to hate me if I'm just myself? Like, that is never, like, yeah, that's proven true sometimes, but majority of times you find your people when you're more yourself, and that does happen. And if they're not your people, that's okay. They don't have to be. And I think letting go of that makes the anxiety of so much better, being like, well, I'm not everyone's cup of tea, nor do I need to be. I mean that respectfully. Because the people that are right for you will come to you, and they will love those quirks and know that your anxiety is what makes you the crazy, silly person that you are, and makes you, for me, it makes me more creative and more compassionate and more empathetic. And it does a lot positive as just as negative.
No, I agree with you there. I can say the same thing. Like because we talked about it a bit, or we will talk about it, how it like fuels you in your life, your day to day life, and like I've kind of found a way. Like at first, I was like, no, I like kind of just doing, nothing when I can, and that is true. But if I just set myself up really well in the means of like having notes and times like alarms and shit to go off to remind me of things, then it helps me. And I'm like, then I don't know, the anxiety isn't as bad because I'm able to accomplish things in a, timely fashion. It's so strange to talk about it when you're like in your 30s, to say like that you need to have that kind of like assistance. But it's like you living with anxiety and any other kind of like disorder like that is like, it's intense. Like I literally feel like I'm coming out of childhood and I'm just figuring all the things out that I should have figured out when do you figure that shit out, like
I think it's different for everyone, and it just sets up of what like generational growth should be, right? Like, my mom got caught on to this a little bit earlier on in her, I think it was more in her later 20s, where I was like, in my well, I don't know how that would work. Like, so early in her 30s, sorry, and I'd be coming more in the teens is when she was really working on her. So she got to teach me. So then if I have a child now, let's say, or however that pans out, then at least I'm equipped immediately to talk to them straight from childhood. Not that I'm going to know what I'm going to do,
yeah,
but at least it's an identifier to be able to help the next generation. So I don't think it's like anybody's right time. I think it just depends on how your life is and how that played out, right? Whereas my mom, she learned at that age, whereas who knows, like I can't speak for my grandmother, but let's just say in that generation, they probably didn't talk about it as much. So my grandmother could have been suffering with her anxiety if she has it for her whole entire life and not realize that till she's in her 40s and 50s,
or
right?
much later. Yeah.
Or much later, right? So it's like that progressional growth over generations, I think, is what we're striving to do, so that we, when we talked about with Lexi and her body image, she wants to help Bria right away so she doesn't have to, and she's saying it's already started, right? And you just don't even think, oh my gosh, this could start even younger than that, right? But it's like, okay, maybe Lexi, now she's healing in that age, the same with my mom, but she's teaching Bria how to do it younger, so then Bria can teach her child or however, or her peers to do that. And it's just kind of that ripple effect is what I think, right? Or what I hope the positive reaction has. And I think that what this podcast and the show and all talking is going to be a small part of it, because it's huge, universal, but at least a part of it. And, helping people, feel that connection and hopefully help those around them so that we can all heal together to get better as the years progress, right? Instead of getting necessarily like going in the opposite direction.
No, for sure. And I see it too in my own house. Like you just said about your mother. Well, and I just coming into my 30s, and I'm really honing in on I'm not going to call them flaws. They're just like parts of me that are not my favorite, that I'm learning how to deal with and unpack and restructure so that I'm not raising my son to be living in this fucking fantasy land where it's not real. And I'm just like, I want him to have the tools. I want him to be prepared. I want him to know what shit is so he can face it head on instead of getting smacked with it in the face and not having any clue. No one talks about it. Then none of this, none of that. He's 5 and we're already talking about anxiety. And it's a thing. So I think for him, the kids this year, it's been a lot of environmental and the pandemic, like a lot of things changed, and change in itself for children is kind of difficult. And so I think every parent can maybe probably agree with me in that. Like you have a routine with your children. And if you have to do something different after you've been doing this routine for so long, I guarantee that most of your children are going to have something to say or have feelings about that routine change. And I see it with Cash a lot. So it's funny because you think about all the things that happened this last year. Can't go to school, can't go to the park, can't play dates, can't go to the pool, can't go bowling, can't do this, can't go to the movie theaters. You can barely even be around in public and be near anybody, let alone fucking have your face with no mask on. So exactly. Many things happened, right? Like, and it was like, nothing you can do about it. This is the way it is. Like if something like that in that magnitude happened when I was 5, I cannot tell you where my brain would be right now. It'd probably be so far up my butt.
Well, and too, like you think that they probably are just starting at that younger age to pick up some stuff, whether that's environmental, situational, however, and then this year we can say the same as adults. Any sort of things, if you hadn't addressed or really probably realized that you had anxiety or depression or any of those things, when you're sitting at home and you really have no choice but to kind of look inwards, that was a huge shock. So when you're 5, 6 years old, that's even bigger. And you're like at that age, even more, you're about routine and, having structure, that systematic safety and structure and foundation. And now all of that is gone. Meanwhile, the whole world is changed. People, you can't see people's smiles. You can't, so that I can totally understand that totally for kids. So it's like the beauty of that is that now you're able to recognize it. So at least Cash now at 5 will have a mom who's working through that, can pass on the tools, as opposed to when he's maybe 16, 18, 20 years old and he's already developed these patterns, these nervous behaviors and patterns that accompany with all the fear and all that, when he didn't have the structure or the knowledge to know, hey, this is a brain pattern. I have to rework this, not just, oh, I'm fucking crazy, I'm overreaction, I'm emotional, da 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 da. He'll be able to call that out and have more tools to be able to work through it instead of, trying to overcompensate, hide it, or avoid it completely, which we know as a result of us doing that doesn't get us anywhere.
No, for sure. That definitely does not get us any place at all, except for trouble.
No. Yes. So let's dive into, let's say, the definition of anxiety, just to, I think most people know, but if we were to take this, like I said, we take this out of Wikipedia, just so that, we can get it. Maybe some people don't know what it is, or maybe they're like, do I have that? So Wikipedia would holy crap, we'll start this properly. The definition of anxiety is an emotion characterized by an unpleasant state of inner turmoil, often accompanied by nervous behavior such as pacing back and forth, somatic complaints, and rumination. It includes subjectively unpleasant feelings of dread over anticipated events. It says, need quotation to verify. I love these notes. Anxiety is a feeling of uneasiness and worry, usually generalized and unfocused as an overreaction to a situation that is only subjectively seen as menacing. It is often accompanied by muscular tension, restlessness, fatigue, and problems in concentration. Anxiety is closely related to fear, which is a response to a real or perceived immediate threat. Anxiety involves the expectation of a future threat. People facing anxiety may withdraw from situations which have provoked anxiety in the past. Me. Anxiety disorders differ from developmentally normative fear or anxiety by being excessive or persisting beyond developmentally appropriate periods. They differ from transient fear or anxiety, often stress-induced, by being persistent, although the criterion for duration is intended as a general guide for allowance for some degree of flexibility and sometimes shorter duration in children. So yeah, you can have times of it. And I think that's my biggest thing is like, I'm not always living in a constant state. Like, yes, I have those thoughts and I have those questions, but I'm not constantly in a state where my body is tense. But there are those that live with that,
Oh yeah, fuck yeah.
all the time. And I've had that period like where my anxiety is the highest, for example, like after a car accident or after my divorce. Like I physically could not handle life with my anxiety, where it's like now I'm more functional and it's just more brain patterns and reworking just the general anxiety, not the environmental and situational.
I find it fascinating, honestly. Like it sounds such a don't excuse me for saying that. I don't like that people have anxiety, but like I love the way that the brain works and how it's literally all brain patterns that you work on. You figure it out, you address it at its source, and you do the work to like break it apart and figure out like what is this, like why is this happening, and then it's so magical. You get to that point where you're just like, I like that. Because I don't live in a constant state of anxiety either. There are just moments where it'll happen. Like yesterday, I want to say this. I really need to say this. It's so funny, but yesterday I had mad anxiety because I didn't eat lunch. And that just, I noticed it right away. So it's like food is super important for me. And it was like my brain was all over the place and I just had no focus and I was like angry and irritable and set like twice at least. Ryan was like, "Are you okay?" I'm just like, it's my fault. Like I'm yeah, like it was legit that bad. So
you need a Snickers?
Well, yeah, I had to eat I had to eat lunch and dinner and then just kind of try and work through it. And so super, super important to make sure you're eating and drinking water and just maintaining your lovely body, because that has a lot to do with it a lot of the time for me. And like, if I don't get enough food, I get stressed right out.
Oh yeah, your basics, your fundamentals, like, and that's what we talked about, is that it's your body generally for the most part, I'm going to speak for myself, not everyone, but hopefully people relate to this. Generally, your anxiety is a response to something in your body. So my first key is like, okay, what am I lacking right now? Why is my body in a sense of panic? Is it something in my brain? Am I hungry? Did I not get enough sleep? Do I need water? Like trying to identify where this is coming from. And if it's like, no, I've eaten, I've slept, I drank. Okay. Like, helping to break it down and identify it. And then it was like, as soon as you're like, oh, I'm hungry, I haven't eaten, then you ate. And I'm sure you felt like 10 minutes better.
Fuck yeah. It just took a while because my body was like running on nothing for like hours. I think I didn't eat dinner until like 3 or 4, or yeah, I was like close to 4, or like lunch. And so the last time I would have eaten would have been I had a shake in the morning. So it's like, it's just not right. It's not healthy for you to not take care of your body. You have to eat. Like that's just bottom line. You have to eat proper nutrients and drink water.
Fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't drive your car around on
No.
empty tank. Is that good for the engine in your car? No. So it's not good for your body, even if your body can survive. Even if you are like, oh, well, I've been doing this for the last 10 years where I work 10 hours a day and I have a granola bar. Like, it's that I'm not shaming anyone. I understand I was that person. I think anybody that has ever worked with me will say I'm the fucking worst at that, or I was. And now it's like, no, I have to. So right now, my job's changed. So I was like, okay, well, you need to make some adjustments to ensure. Before I'd be like, oh, well, that's just life. I'll just eat a quick snack at lunch. And it's like, no, I know that I'm going to get sicker and my mental state and my physical state is going to get worse if I don't eat properly. So now I get up an extra 15-20 minutes to make sure I slam a little bit more food, even though my body's just not great at eating first thing in the morning. I get up and I work out a little bit so that my body is like hungry, so that I could eat, so that when I get to work, I'm not starving right off the bat, so my body is set up, it's got fuel. So now I can focus on my brain and what's at hand. If I'm starving, all I'm thinking about is, holy fuck, when's my break so I can eat? And that's just not great. And then I'm like, oh, I'm not thinking about work. I'm thinking about food, and then you get into the habit of like at work where you just, in my past job, I would just work so much. And this is actually all my past jobs, that I would sit at my desk and just eat snacks. And it was just enough to keep me satisfied. But I was always like kind of hungry. It's stupid. So it's like, for me, I have to put that as a priority, because if I don't, then I know it's going to backfire down the road of the rest of the day.
Like samesies. My last job, I was different though. Like I've always had to eat like a lot. I have to eat a lot. Like people used to make fun of me, and it's funny as I'm just like, why you gotta like pick out like the way that I'm eating? Like I'm eating because my body goes through a lot in the daytime. Like being physically laborious, like I know you are now, like you've gone from, you were doing more like behind the scenes stuff, analytical type stuff for your last job, but this one is hands on. So you need, like I respect that. You know that you need to bring fuel and be prepared for what you need to your body to put you like go through and stuff. So like you're pre-planning, so you're not gonna put yourself through a situation where you're hungry and something comes out of it, because that, like your body's like, I'm starving. Like, why wouldn't you feed me? And we're working so hard, like, I get that. I get it. I fucking eat like a horse.
And your nervous system stems from your stomach. So if your stomach is at alarm, that's just, as far as my understanding is, that's going to just send out more signals that, like, hey, this bitch is starving us. Why aren't you eating? You're supposed to eat. It's an essential thing in life. Oh, she must be killing us. And that's when we talk about fitness. And I'm sure I'm not a nutrition person, but basic fundamentals is, if you starve yourself and eat nothing but bad fats, then as for me, then it stores all that bad fat. So if I'm just eating one meal a day and I'm just eating like a quick, and I eat A&W every week. Y'all know that. I eat pizza. I'm not saying that. But if I don't eat everything else in the day and have good calories, and that's the only thing that I eat, my body holds on to that. I feel like shit. I feel like I look like shit because it's not good for me. And then my nervous system is shot because not only did I starve it, but then I also fed it its worst fuel. And then my mental state has always been the worst when I continually do that. But I do believe in a balance. So I do believe you can incorporate that. Your body's used to it. But if you're not eating all day and then you just eat that one meal and you're like, oh, well, I just had one burger today. Well, your body is thinking, oh, bitch is starving me. I'm going to hold on to this fat so I don't lose it, because she's never going to feed me again. It goes
into survival mode, just like we do when.
Exactly. And then, So it's sending signals out to the rest of your body saying, hey, she's trying to kill us. Panic or whatever.
Panic at the disco.
Yes, exactly. And just before we get into these poll things, though, just another relate to the anxiety, just for you guys that are listening, we're super grateful that we've had, I think we're almost close to, we're definitely over 300 views between all platforms, which is just insane. And we just want to thank you guys so much. And just this anxiety thing, and talking about it, I think one thing through this is that we continually have it, but we push through because we want to help and we want to connect to you guys. So I would love to empower you guys. If you feel anything, you want to share anything, please reach out to us. The thing that keeps us going is the messages that we're getting from friends and new friends and just people in the community saying how much they're enjoying hearing us. And that just for me gives me more fuel for the fire to keep going and to keep being vulnerable with you guys. So I urge you, don't ever be afraid to reach out and talk to us, because we really love to hear it. And if you want to talk about a subject that's personal to you, we want you on the show. This is for everybody. There's no requirements, just that you have a phone and you're willing to give us an hour of uninterrupted of your time. So yeah, please keep doing that. Keep sharing us. The more people here, hopefully the more we can reach, the more subjects we can talk about, the more we can all connect. So I want to thank you guys a lot, and just really feel open to share your stories with us, or even just share our stories to anybody that you think that this could help.
Yes, I have to agree there. I'm completely, we need the engagement as much as we want it, pretty much. Like, we want you guys to be engaged, and it really helps keep it flowing and keeps us in, like, it just keeps everything in order if we're all kind of getting, coming out together and just being like, this is what's up. Like, we're totally inviting it. This is 100% about that. So
we did this poll again, guys, on anxiety, and I just did it on Instagram this time. It's just a lot easier. So we came with the first question of, do you suffer for anxiety? And it was 92% of people said yes, and 8% said no.
Not surprising.
So that's not surprising, and that's a very hard number. And I love those that said no, and I'm so happy for you. Just kidding. I'm happy for
I know, no, totally. But it's like, it's actually awesome to have this much engagement. Like, I like that. I love doing the poll stuff with it, because it's getting more, it's growing, and I like seeing the engagement like that. So next one is, do you suffer from panic attacks?
Right. So this one was 89% said yes, and 11% said no. So that's
high.
I guess it's high, and it's not entirely shocking, because I think everyone can probably say when they've suffered that is probably when they're at a hardest time in their lives. And being that majority of people suffer from it, we've talked about this, where, sometimes you can't control how high that goes or how low you go. And, it's very easy to get there. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that, everyone can get to, it makes me sad, because I know what that at a small scale, but it's not necessarily shocking, because that's the extreme of this illness,
for sure.
right?
It's not these one, and that, like, it gets in more interesting with the numbers and the difference between them. So our next one is, if you said yes to having anxiety, do you use medication?
So 21% said yes, and 79% said no. So I actually found this a little bit shocking, to be honest. I thought more people would have been on medication, and I don't know if, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just the majority of people that I've talked to have. So I was just nice to see another spectrum of people that that didn't necessarily take that route. I'm either for or against it. It's your personal journey to decide. Myself, I was on venlafaxine for about 2 years, and I came off it myself, and my doctor supported me. After the fact, I told her that's what I did, and she supported me. So I feel really great in that. And I know Kayla has her own experience.
Oh yeah, no, well. I had to take, mine was more, in the beginning, it was more for depression, but it also turns out that this is a multi-purpose medication, and it was also helpful in stabilizing my anxiety. So yeah, like, it's funny. It's funny that I didn't come off with my doctor, though. I didn't say anything to anybody. I was just like, one day, I don't like this. I don't like the way it makes me feel. I'm just not going to take it. And I just didn't take it. It was rough. I remember, like, I can even remember Ryan too. He was just like, are you taking medication? Are you good? And I was like, no, I'm not taking it anymore. And he's like, what the fuck? Why are you not taking your medication? And I was like, I don't want to. It makes me feel like a robot. And he's like, fair enough. Yes. Like, he's like, I support that. He's like, I just want you to be okay. And I'm like, okay, all right.
Agreed. Yeah. And that was the same for me. And we could, like, for me, and I don't think I talked about this at any point, but my weight gain at my largest was after being on medication and birth control for so long. And I just held so much, and it just gave me the side effects that to me weren't worth it at the time. I was in a better environment, relationship, so I was ready to come off of it. And I was the same way. I didn't tell my doctor until it was like a month later when I went to go get birth control. I was like, oh yeah, by
I'm
the
not
way,
taking that
done.
shit anymore.
But she supported it. She just said, like, next time, like, call me and I will, like, do your doses properly.
Cold
where
turkey.
I was just like, I just dropped my doses down in a week. And then it was like, yeah, like same thing. I was really sick, but it was worth it. And so the answers is, if you said yes, that you took medication, did you find it helpful? And so here's some of the answers we got back. One was yes. One was didn't help and it added side effects, so they stopped taking them, which I kind of attest to. It did help, but it didn't, but I didn't like the side effects. Another one was I was until I needed more, and then I was fine again, and then I needed more and more, and that was also triggered to me. It was like, how much am I going to have to take of this when I'm, in 20 years from now? Am I going to be on 18 of these pills if you keep upping them every so often?
I wondered the same thing, and I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, and this is my favorite one because we all know I'm green friendly. CBD only, no prescription meds, which I love, and I know that is working for this person. Another answered Ativan only for panic attacks, and it's extremely helpful, which I agree. I have done Ativan for like the dentist. And then we did have another one that said yes, previously medication has worked. So that was really great to hear. So, if you are trying to find alternatives and things don't work, like, we're not suggesting for or against, but definitely have the conversations with the doctor and work with them to find your unique path of healing. If you're not finding something, don't be afraid of medication. There's
nothing wrong with it.
It did work for me at a time. And while it took away my anxiety in that moment, I was able to develop tools so that I could come off of it and not need it personally for right now. But who knows, maybe something happens in life where I need it again. You just have the conversation.
No, totally.
For sure.
You have to, like, do not cold turkey shit people. Like, trust us when we say this. It's not like we did not have a good time doing that. So don't get off of here and be like, oh, fuck it, I'm not going to take my medication anymore because they said it's okay. No. Talk to someone, have someone on your team beside you to support you through it that's medically capable, because, it's a serious thing. And we're talking about your brain and your brain patterns and, the things. It's very technical. So I have to stress that. Don't do what we do.
Don't do what we do.
Do what we say, but not what we do. I don't know. So, Frick. Besides, we made it, but like, was it pretty? I don't know. I don't think so. It was scary.
No, not hot.
It's lucky to be alive.
I know. So do what you need to do. Don't be afraid. All we're saying is don't be afraid to look in and change and work and fight hard for your journey to find out what works for you. Don't get discouraged with one medication or not medication or this or that. Just open the conversations, document what works, what doesn't, and work through it until you find. No one's going to have the answer for you. You're only going to be able to answer that for you. So you have to go on that journey yourself to trial and error. And we're just giving things that we have tried and others have tried, just so that everyone has all the options, on as many options on the table as you can. Which leads us to our next question.
So besides medication, guys, have you ever tried an alternative like therapy?
So the answer to this was 57% said yes and 40% said no. And the other follow-up question was, did you find this helpful? And so the answers were here. That counseling or talking it out with friends, they find is very helpful. So that I agree, like, therapy is definitely with a therapist, but don't don't discredit talking to your friends and family. That is also super therapeutic.
Oh, yeah,
just getting it off your chest.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And then a lot of people, there was 2 answers that said yes, they have gone to therapy and they found it extremely helpful. One girl said extremely. Another said that they've tried many times, but knowing the Canadian medical system, it's really hard to see anybody. And I find that is true, especially if you don't have insurance and you want to talk to someone like medically, like $110 to $130 an hour.
Some of them are like $250.
Yeah. So you guys, if anybody out there listening does have a cheaper alternative, please share it with us, because we would love to share it out. And, like, when I was recently talking to the doctor about stress and, my mental illnesses, he, said to definitely be careful, because sometimes some online resources aren't accredited. So make sure when you are looking that you're finding places that are, not just hype pages that are just fluffy without actual any sort of like
good advice.
Scientific. Right. Because he said, there's a lot of people out there trying to help. And it's not that those people aren't. There's lots of light coaches that are there to help. But if you really are looking for help on that kind of, psychiatric level, like, just make sure that the information that you're getting is from a credible source. So things that have like, you know, as much as we struggle like sometimes with the government things, there's definitely, if it's got gov or health, like the, you know which ones are good for you. So that's, if anybody has more than that, please share any online resources. We'd love to share. And then another one which I've never looked into, which I know a friend really has been helped with, this is EDMR therapy. So that's something that I definitely would like to look into more for myself, because she's definitely a huge advocate for it. So yeah, that'll be we'll dive into that a little bit more hopefully on the show deeper. But yeah, so to be continued, and we'll bring you guys more on that, because this will be an ever evolving
cool
topic.
I can't wait to hear about that. Rolling into our next one, guys. Win Brandy, this one, this is a multi answer one. Yes. Okay. So at what age did you realize this was an issue?
So there was 4 answers. A is before 10, which there was 1. B was 11 to 20, which there was 6. 21 to 30 was 14. And 31 plus was 3. So that's, to me, not entirely shocking, because I think a lot of people suffer from anxiety, which will be a question down the road here. But it's usually, what we found is a moment or something in time, and 20 to 30 is a very, very discoverable time in your life, and a very unsure, where your 30s, you know, you're kind of a little bit more, it's like your second time of doing your 20s. So I wasn't entirely shocked that was the majority answer.
No,
was
you know what? That is actually, now that I see the way that it was set up, like at first when we were talking about it, I was like, what is this? But then I forgot you had like the answers and everything. So yeah, that actually is not surprising that it was between that time, because I think I was late 20s when I really was like, what the hell is going on with me? Why am I such a freak?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, right, like I think in school it happens. I mean, you have a little bit of it, but you're so busy being a kid. And because it's always a lot of anxiety as reactions from fear, you don't have as many fear. Well, not everyone. There's a lot of people that have had a lot of fearful stuff or in a younger age. So they have that fear of, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like they're in that fight or flight a lot more. But I think once we're adults and we're out in the world and we're really, really fucking dealing with shit, it's more common that people are going to have more traumatic experiences as an adult. You know, as people grow, when you're younger, you're a little bit more in a bubble.
Oh yeah.
You know, just to your family. Whereas like when you're in your 20s, you're like, oh, now I have to be an adult. Fuck. I mean, I'm 34 and I'm like, shit, am I ever going to be an adult?
No, I hear that. I'm fully like, oh, that's so funny. Oh my God. Okay. So now we're going to go and talk about being supported. Do you feel supported with your anxiety? What were our answers, Brandy?
So 60% of people feel supported in their anxiety, and 40% said no. So 12 to 8 there. So out of 20 people, 12 people said yes. So I think that's a better.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, as it goes along, like we'll grow or we won't grow. Our audience that we have is amazing. So it's awesome that you guys have this kind of engagement, and it's encouraging, and it makes me feel good to like hear that 60% of you are feeling supported. And you know, like, what can we do about that other 40%? Well, we can change it. We're changing it now by having these conversations.
Yes. So the 40% of you that said no, know that me and Kayla are here for that. And we're doing what we're hoping is the best for you guys by sharing these experiences, so you maybe don't feel so alone, or you're welcome to always open that conversation. Both of us have, daytime jobs. So if we don't answer, don't let that anxiety tell you that you're not important and we're not going to get to you. We're just legitimately busting our asses off, being boss bitches. Okay. But as soon as we have a second, we are here to answer your questions, and we're here to talk to you through those moments. So those 40%, even that 60%, all of you, we are here for you. If you don't feel supported, hit us up, because we are here.
Beautifully rolls us into the next one. Is we're asking people if they felt there were resources for their help.
Perfect. So then 68% of people said yes, they felt there was resources, and 32% no. So again, you 32%ers, you know where we at. We got you.
And then is this our final one here? I think it is. Second to last?
Oh,
okay, yes. No, here we go. Can you remember the first time that you experienced anxiety in your life?
So 60% of people said yes, and 33% said no. So again, the majority being that it's in their 21 to 30 age, that would make sense that, you know, a lot of people remember. But that being said, there were people that, you know, the second runner up would be that child teenage years where it's probably like you remember it, but you can't remember that specific experience, or you've, if you're like me, you put it in a box and bury it deep, and then a trigger will remind you
for
of it. And you're like,
sure.
oh yeah, right, that happened.
Uh,
Just kidding. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just like, why carry that on anymore?
Totally.
It happened. It's done. I'm over it. But then something will come up, or a song, and I'll just remember it. And for that moment, I'm like,
feel it. Yep. No, I'm
away.
with you on that one. I get like that too. Like I said, yeah, with the pictures, frick, with me having just coming through, because going back, it's like, I don't know. I've just been moving forward for so long, or trying to move, like trudge forward for so long, that I haven't really thought about looking back. And it's like, when I do, it's like, oh yeah, well, it's just like, those are just visual moments that are like embedded, that, you know, you'll always remember. But it's like, you can, I like what you just said, you can re-pattern how you think about it, and it passes quicker, you know. It's just like, it doesn't, you don't stay stuck in that, the dredge of it, you know. It's much better.
Yeah.
And
absolutely. And I think that's the cool part too, like how Lexi said in the last one, was loving every photo. And I think not just with body image, but anxiety on our past. It's like, I'll look back at photos when I had a different life, when I was married to somebody else, I was working somewhere else. Like, I look back and I remember her, but I don't recognize her anymore. And I don't think that's a bad. And now I'm trying to remember and be like, every moment of that journey got you here to today. So love that as well, because you were her and you loved your life at that time as well. Just because it's changed now doesn't mean you weren't happy then, even though things didn't end up necessarily how you thought they were going to be at the time. You know what I mean? So it's like trying to revamp that direction of, when I look back at those pictures, and like, and I know it's easier said than done, but it's lovely when you come to that moment. And there's still some pictures I can't yet, but where you just look back and you're like, yep, that was who I was at the time, and I was this, and that's part of my journey, and I love you, I see you, I honor it, and it's in the past, and I'm happy that happened, and I'm happy to be where I am today. And it's just like such a relieving feeling when you get there, and I really hope that for everyone in their
I truly believe it's
hardships
possible
in their life. Totally. I mean, I can't speak for anyone else, but I hope that for everyone, and I hope they find the ways to do that, because it's such a relief.
And with that, we are going to roll into our very last question. And this is a multiple choice question as well. Do you feel you were A, born with it, B, developed over time, C, only situational, or D, event triggered it?
So A, was born with it was 4, developed it over time was 10, C, only situational was 3, and event triggered it was 7. So again, going back to that first question, where most people that had anxiety started developing it in that 21s to 30s, I think, again, that was like, you know, you probably maybe had some sort of something with anxiety as a kid, but over time you focused on it, fears got bigger, you got through more shit, you had more traumatic over time, or a situation that happened, an event triggered, you know, that those are all things that happen again in that really holy fuck, I haven't developed, guys, developmental time of those 20s to 30s. I think we were all just like running so hard I didn't know what the fuck, and then your 30s you're like, oh, this is the fuck, but I have to slow down.
Oh no, totally, I agree.
Right?
That's so funny.
It's true. So yeah, so that was our poll, guys, on Instagram, and we're going to do another one for our following topic, which is going to be depression. So you guys will see that popping up pretty soon if you can. You know, we're not, like we've shown, we're not saying any names, we're not doing anything, we're just giving the numbers so that you guys can kind of see what your peers are going through as well, and with our guest episodes, so that we can give some more perspectives. And we do have a guest episode coming for anxiety as well, and we'll be asking the same questions we're about to ask each other coming up here.